So Yom Kippur and the Cheda Egel. Let's introduce some psukim about Yom Kippur. You have Parshas Acharemos. In Parshas Acharemos, you have the beginning of the parsha begins with all of the details that Aaron HaKohen, being the Kohen Gadol, what he's responsible to do, representing the Jewish people on Yom Kippur. And it describes, on the seventh month, on the 10th day, right? Yud Tishrei, you should ta'anu as nashos seichem, you should afflict yourself with some sort of suffering, and you shouldn't do any malacha, all of you. Why? Ki bayom hazeh yichaper aleichem l'taher eschem mikol chatoseichem lefnei Hashem titaru. Today is the day that you'll have kapara, yichaper aleichem, you'll have atonement. That's the name Yom Kippur. It's a Shabbos on Hilachem. It's a special Shabbos. Again, repeated, v'nisim as nashos seichem chukas olam. You should afflict yourself physically. And again, repeats, l'chaper al b'nei Yisrael mikol tosam. And then it says an interesting phrase. Achas bashana. Once in the year. Vayaz kasher tiva Hashem as Moshe. And Aaron did as Moshe told. It's a little bit interesting. We already told it's one day of year. B'chodesh hashvi'i b'asor l'chodesh. In the 7th month, Tishrei, on the 10th of the month. Sounds like how many days? One day. And then the Torah still repeats itself, achas b'shana, once over the course of the year. This phenomenon repeats itself again, happens to be earlier in Sefer Shemos, Parshat Tetzaveh, and describing all the construction of the different kelim for the Mishkan. It says that inside the Kodesh Kodashim, the Holy of Holies, Basisa Mizbach Miktar Ketoras Atzei Shitim Tasel. So you build a special altar that's only used for the incense for the Ketoras. You put it inside the curtain, inside the Kodesh Kodashim, Asher al Haron Haidut, which is where the Aron is, Lefnei Kapora, right before the Kapora, which has the Luchot, Asher al Haidut, Asher Yivayil Chashama, which is also the place where God speaks to Moshe. And says the Chumash about this, Mizbach HaKetoret, V'chiper Aron al Karnotav, Aaron should use it as a source of kapara, atone for the Jewish people, achas b'shana, one day of year. Midam chatara chipurim, from the dam of the chatas offering brought on Yom Kippur. Again, achat b'shana, once in the year. Yichaper alav l'dorotechem, kodesh kodeshim hu la'adonai. It's a source of atonement for all generations. This is the kodesh kodashim, which Aaron entered into and used and utilized only once a year. 3 times, once a year. Save the date. This 10th of Tishrei, it's a special day. It's once a year. Why is the Torah repeating over and over again? That's once a year. Isn't this like, say it once. And why say it at all? If you're telling me it's only the 10th of Tishrei, so it's obvious that it's only going to be once a year. There's only 1/10 of Tishrei. And we don't have this by any of the other holidays. So what's up with that? That's the question I'm posing to start this off. Yeah, you have Aaron going into the Kodesh Kodashim, using the Mizbach HaKetoret once a year. It's enough. So, Yom Kippur, I think what the Torah is trying to promote to us and imply is that Yom Kippur is exclusively unique compared to any other day of the year. Don't just think of it as like, okay, it's once a year, but it's like any other day. No. Everything about Yom Kippur is an exception. Everything about Yom Kippur is different. And it's only supposed to be once a year. Don't think you're supposed to do Yom Kippur all year long. No, it's only one day a year, achas b'shana, as an example to highlight that. One of the most basic of the halachot of Yom Kippur is that there's 5 inuyim, as the pasuk repeated itself over and over again over here. Ta'anu nano sheichem. So there's 5 of them. There's 5 inuyim, ways that we cause ourselves to suffer, to feel the pain a little bit, right? The classic one is obviously eating and drinking. Yeah. The next one is wearing leather shoes. The next one is using some sort of soothing oils, maybe even moisturizers, different things that, make your skin feel good. It's comforting. Another one, cleaning ourselves. No baths, no showers, washing your face, It's very tough. And also a married couple, they have to be separated, right? 5 different inuyim. Is this the ideal? Is this what we're supposed to be striving for all year? Are we supposed to be afflicting ourselves all year? Call ourselves prushim, people that separate from physicality? No. It's an achas bashana type of reality. Not just for practical reasons, but even for ideal reasons. Right? It goes without saying, we're supposed to serve God through physicality. We're supposed to eat and make brachos when we eat. And we're supposed to make ourselves healthy by eating healthy so that then we could live, meaningful, energetic, purposeful lives. We're supposed to have, we're supposed to be married. Why? Both for the sake of having children and growing the Jewish people, and also for our sake of being people that give to each other, build a very intimate relationship, and goes without saying, you have to be clean, right? If you're not clean, no one's going to want to be near you, and no one's going to think highly of you, right? Part of the name of the game is called Kiddush Hashem. Make people think, oh, it's cool to be a Jew. And if you're really, really dirty and gross, it's not cool to be a Jew. So obviously, all of these 5 things are exceptional. They're not the norm for what we're supposed to be doing as Jews or people. So why are we doing it? We're doing it because we're trying to be like angels. Angels, in many ways, differ from human beings. The most notable one is that human beings are physical and angels are not. Angels are entirely spiritual, whatever that means. It's a little bit beyond our grasp of understanding. But we're striving to be above this physicality and to be more angelic. And this reflects itself in halacha, right? One of the most classic, well-known minhagim that we have on Yom Kippur is that as opposed to all year, after saying Shema Yisrael, we, instead of whispering Baruch Shem Kavod Machuto Li'olam Va'ed, instead we yell it out loud. Why? So when the Shulchan Aruch brings down this minhag, the Magen Avraham explains, based on Midrash, that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was up in Shemayim at Har Sinai, he saw the malachim there, and what were they doing? They were saying out loud, Baruch Shem Kavod Machuto Li'olam Va'ed. So what are we doing by saying it out loud? We're mimicking, we're imitating. It's just a few moments into the fast at Mariv, and all of a sudden so we see ourselves as these angels because we're taking upon ourselves these chamisha inuyim, these 5 ways of physical affliction. Again, but are we really malachim? Are we really angels? No, right? Last I checked, I have a body, I have physicality, and I eat. I'm drinking a seltzer at the moment. And you know who doesn't feel bad about it? Me, because that's not what we're supposed to be doing. This is all an achas bashana type of reality. So it begs the question, why are we doing this for 1 day a year? If is this like a game? It's all charades. What are we trying to accomplish on Yom Kippur, this exceptional day? The origins of Yom Kippur, I think, are telling for the answer. The origins for Yom Kippur trace itself back to Parshas Kisisa. As we know, after God gives the Jewish people the Torah, and he reveals himself to us at Har Sinai, and he gives everyone in the Jewish people of all levels a prophetic vision of experiencing nevuah, just like Moshe Rabbeinu, and thereby giving us the Aseres HaDibros, giving us the Luchos. You would think we're at the super high, we would be super inspired and super committed to Judaism and Torah. And of course, the story continues that we obviously weren't, because what happened immediately afterwards? The Chet HaEgel. Yeah, the sin of the golden calf. We basically, a few days after our wedding with God, we backstab him and ditch him for the stupid golden calf. How was God reacting to that? Well, God's reaction was, let me wipe out the Jewish people. Moshe, stand aside. I'm going to turn you into a great nation. And all of those folks, I'm going to wipe them out. And Moshe, being the leader that he is, had our back. And he said, no, take me before them. Don't let them leave. Don't eradicate their memory. After all, you made a promise to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. You're going go back out of your word on that? And Moshe davened and davened and davened. And This happened, the Cheda Egel happened, Rashi tells us, based on the Midrash, B'Shivasar B'Tammuz Nishtabru Alucho, on the 17th of Tammuz, right? One of the many reasons why we fast on that day. Moshe Rabbeinu saw what happened with the Cheda Egel, and out of frustration and anger and disappointment, he broke the Lucho. Fast forward, I think the math goes to 40 days. Moshe's davening and davening and davening, and God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, okay, Rosh Chodesh Elul, you could come up, and I'll give you a second set of luchot that you broke. I'll renew my vows with the Jewish people. We'll get remarried. And after 40 days of davening and davening and davening, that the luchot and the stature of the Jewish people should be the same as it was before, it wasn't going to be the same. Second marriages often are not like the first marriage. That was our fate. On Yom Kippur, 40 days after Rosh Chodesh Elul, God says to Moshe, Vayomer Hashem Salachti Kidvarecha. The famous pasuk that's made its way into Slichos. God says to Moshe, I forgave the Jewish people just like your words, just like you asked. That's Yom Kippur. As Rashi says, Ba'asara b'tishrei nisratza Kadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael, not just God was appeased with the Jewish people, b'simcha, with joy, ubelev shalim, and with complete heart. Va'amar lo Moshe salachti, and he said, I forgave them. Umasar lo luchot acharono, and he gave him the second set of luchot. And then Moshe came down by Yara v'histil etavosam amlechas hamishkan, and then Moshe started giving instructions for building the Mishkan, a place where God could live with the Jewish people. V'aso aracha b'Nisan, and they built it from Yom Kippur until the 1st of Nisan. Yom Kippur is a day of forgiveness for the Cheda Egel. So obviously the two are intertwined. In what sense, though? How did we mess up with Cheda Egel? What happened? As I said, you would imagine we would be on the most spiritually uplifted high after Ma'amad Har Sinai, after seeing God in this prophetic vision with the shofar, with the thunder and the miracles and the prophecy. It's like the craziest thing. And we're told the Seres Dibros, and like Moshe goes up for 40 days and 40 nights. Like, how do we mess up like this? The Gemara points out in Masechah Shabbos, a famous Gemara, Vayityatzvu b'tachtit har. The Jewish people stood on the bottom of the mountain. So on a level of pshat, the simple understanding is that we're at the floor of the mountain, right? Where Moshe is the one that went up, and we're waiting on the ground level. Says the Gemara, a midrashic idea, Amar Avadimi, Barchama, Barchasa, Milame, Shakafa, Kadosh Baruch Hu, Aleim, et Ahar, Kegigas. This is teaching us that they were literally underneath the mountain. How are you underneath the mountain? What does that mean? Is there a subway system underneath the mountain? What does it mean? Says the Gemara, it means that God picked up the mountain and held it over them as if it was a barrel being held over them. Va'amar, and God says to them, Imatem mikabelim haTorah, if you receive the Torah, mutav, great. Ve'im lav, and if not, sham tehei kfuraschem. Here's where you're going to be buried. I'm going to drop this mountain on you right here, right now. Is this meant to be literal? Maybe. Alternatively, no, it's teaching us a lesson. Alternatively, it's teaching us this lesson that the Jewish people, you know why they failed right afterwards? It's because they weren't ready for this. They were so jacked up on these miracles and inspiration that they were just not ready for. They just jumped too many steps in the ladder that meant that they were just going to fall much quicker and much harder. And as a result, because they're on this level that they couldn't maintain, because they weren't ready, they weren't prepared for it, they fell so fast and so bad. That's how the Cheda Egel happened. And the Gemara even says, Amar Acha Bar Yaakov Mikan Moda Rabba Leoraita. This actually, throws a little bit of shame on the Torah in the sense that this wasn't a binding commitment. If you don't have real intent for a commitment, it's not a commitment that you're bound to keep. You're misled, so to speak. The Jewish people were kind of drugged into this. So it makes all the sense in the world that we failed. Why are we bound to the Torah? Because we recommitted to it later. Amar Rava, Afal Pike, nevertheless, Hadar Kablua Bimei Achashverosh. In the story of Purim, in the days of Achashverosh, we reaffirmed our vows. Kimu v'kiblu haYehudim, kimu mashi kiblu kvar. The pasuk says that we reaffirmed that which we committed to before. What's the message here? On Purim, it's the exact opposite. God was hidden. You know, I have this picture of Dwight. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. In place of distance makes the heart grow fonder. False, out of sight, out of mind. God was like missing in the story of Purim. That's why his name is not there in the Megillah. First, we received the Torah with God being totally there in this cloud with these miracles. But that's not the way we're supposed to receive the Torah. We're supposed to receive the Torah and commit to God in the darkness where we seek him out. So why did God do these miracles in the first place? You know, advice that I always heard when I was getting married was like people would say this blessing that was very like cute, like your wedding should be the worst day in your marriage. Meaning to say like it should only go up. You think it's so high, you think you love your wife or whoever, your spouse at this moment, you think now is like the highlight. No, it should only get better. And obviously there's some truth to that, but I think there's also like, it's missing the point a little bit of what the point of a wedding is. The Kuzari explains in the context of Matan Torah that the reason why we make weddings so grand, so regal, and so dramatic is because it's supposed to be like your anchor. It's supposed to be like this experience that you never, ever forget. And of course, it's inevitable that, you know, every relationship and every experience in life is going to have its ups and downs, right? But if you have that home base, that experience, that's like the highlight that you'll never, ever forget, that could propel you and take you forever. Even when things feel dark and down and missing and lacking and deficient. Yom Kippur is the exact same experience. God gave us the Torah and this crazy, dramatic, exaggerated that experience that we weren't ready for, so that we always have in our memory, and we're required, according to the Ramban, it's a mitzvah in the Torah, to always remember Ma'amar Har Sinai, to remember that God revealed himself to us. And even though we weren't ready to maintain that level of connection to God, as evidenced by the fact that we sinned right away, it was supposed to be, God's intention was that it was supposed to be this experience that we'll never forget. And even when we feel like God's lacking and our relationship with God is far and distant, nevertheless, I remember that time that I saw God. I remember that time that I felt close to God. I remember that experience where I was inspired. And even though right now I don't feel inspired, I know that I felt it at one time and I know that was real and I want to take that with me. Yom Kippur is the tikkun, it's the fixing of that failure that we had. Yom Kippur is the achas b'shana. It's that one artificial, extreme, disgenuine experience of feeling like a malach, even though I'm not, I'm physical. I eat and I drink. I wear leather shoes. But it's supposed to be this experience that I remember 364 days later, that I was able to be like an angel for one day. And I take that with me the rest of the year. And it changes me. And it makes me a more refined person if I do it right. And that's the case for all of us. That's the goal of Yom Kippur. It's a day to, you know, once a year, leave it all on the floor. Be someone that you're not a little bit. Be an angel. Even if it's not really who you are. So that, you know, when you're back in the trenches, you remember it. You remember how great you were and how inspired you were. And then you could be like, I'm not about that. I don't need to do that anymore. I don't need to repeat that. Today, As the Rambam says, Yom HaKippurim Huzman Tshuva L'Kol. It's a time for everyone to repent. Liachid v'larabim, individuals and collective plurals. V'hu kates mechila slicha Yisrael. It's the ultimate time of having forgiveness for the Jewish people. Lefikach, therefore, unlike any other day of the year, there's a special chayavim hakol lasos tshuva ulisvados biyom kippurim. There's a special obligation that actually obligates you to do tshuva and to do vidoy, confessions, on this day. It's the Achas B'Shana day of the year that hopefully we'll do right, and it will serve for us as a schut that we have a Gemara Chasima Tova and merit to have a wonderful year, all of us.